Well, hello. It's really lovely to be with you. And thank you so much for the privilege of starting off your time together as you think around this theme of being rooted. I'm not going to try to say your Dutch word for it because I know I will fail miserably. But I've actually just come in from my greenhouse where I've been looking at the vegetables and the plants that I'm growing and reflecting on the roots that are underneath everything that I can see. So it's a wonderful topic that you're going to be looking at together. And I know a verse in Jeremiah is part of your theme for this time, but I want to read out another couple of verses from Jeremiah 7:17, 7 and 8. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its that sends out its roots by the stream. It doesn't fear when heat comes, its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit. As we think today around being rooted, I want us to start us with those verses because fundamentally, we start from a place of being rooted in God. We have been created by him. We have been made in God's image. We have the breath of God that God has breathed into us. We have been created to worship God, to love God, to enjoy God forever. So whatever else we're going to be looking at through this time together, let's remember that it all comes from that place of being rooted in God. And I want to encourage you to think about what are some of those habits, some of those practices that would help lead you into being more deeply rooted in God. Are there habits of silence and of stillness, of meditation, of taking time simply to sit and to be with God, that you could be bringing and building deeply into your life? Being rooted starts from being rooted in God. That is where everything else comes from. From being rooted in God, our roots then spread out into the human community. I was reading the other day about the amazing, huge redwoods in the United States, you know, the tallest trees in the world. And you might look at those and think, how do they stay so high up, and how do they stay so solid and don't topple over when the wind comes? They must have enormously deep roots. Well, actually, they don't have that deep roots. What they have are roots that spread out and that are intertwined with the roots of the other trees. And so as you see a giant redwood forest, underneath, all of the roots of those trees are interlinked. We have been created as beings in communion. I'm sorry if that's difficult to translate. That's a saying that comes from a theologian, an Eastern Orthodox theologian, John Zizioulas, and he has called us beings in communion. We are social beings. We are relational beings. We're not created to be isolated trees standing in ground like that. We are created to be like those redwoods, with our roots deeply interlinked with each other. And so our rootedness in God always should turn us outwards towards the other. We know this is very biblical. The view of righteousness that we get in the Bible isn't actually so much about whether we're practicing the religious festivals and following the Sabbath and doing all of those religious things. The biblical view of righteousness is that a person or a community is righteous when they are practicing social justice, when they are looking after the other. So our rootedness in God should always turn us outwards towards building and creating community. But then our roots don't stop there either. We are rooted in the whole community of creation. As human beings, right at the start in Genesis 1, we were created by God and we were called Adam. Adam, to begin with, always has the definite article, the before it. It's always the Adam. It's not until Eve is created that Adam becomes a name with a capital A. It's always the Adam. And we are the Adam, created from the Adamah, which is Hebrew for soil. So we are earth creatures. Out of the soil we have been made. We are deeply rooted into and a part of the whole community of creation. We have been created to take our place as part of the whole created world, but to take our place and to take care of it and to act responsibly towards it. So our rootedness in God is based on our practices and our disciplines that take us deeper into God, fundamentally about trust, those who trust in God. And we put in place in our lives those things that will enable us to build our roots into God and to draw on God's nourishment through the Holy Spirit. And then as we do that, our roots spread out and they intertwine with those who are around us and we form community. We don't stand on our own. And so practices of social justice, thinking about how we live in relation to other people, standing up against oppressors, standing up against poverty and injustice, taking care of the poor and the needy who are around us and globally. All of these are part of being rooted in with others, being rooted into community. And haven't we seen that? Aren't we seeing that in our pandemic? That we are only as strong as those who are around us. Community has become so important. And now we see the importance of our global community. If we're not able to act and to move together, if we're not all able to get vaccines, then ultimately we will all fall. So we stand and we fall together. We are part of the whole community of human beings with our roots rooted in with each other. And then from that, as Adam, created from the Adamah, we are earth creatures rooted into the wider natural world. And so we must put in place practices that encourage us to live that out. We must think about the resources that we consume, the amount of carbon that we emit. We must think about the food that we eat, the sorts of clothes that we wear, the technology we use, the energy we consume, how we travel, the amount of plastic that we use, what we throw away, thinking about our lives and how our lives respect the community of creation. And then we can bring that into our churches as well. And together, we can stand together to call on our governments and on our businesses to be putting into place policies and practices that work in favour of those who are in poverty and work in favour of the wider natural world. So bless you today as you go on and consider this theme of being rooted. I know there's so much more for you to touch on, but remember, it starts from being rooted in God. And when we are rooted in God, then we will bear fruit in our communities and towards the wider natural world.